Full time, by the way, Leicester City won, Fulham 2. That's an unbelievable result for Fulham, really, away from home. So they suddenly jump out of the relegation zone. They move to 7 points through 10 games. West Brom, Burnley and Sheffield United, the bottom three as things stand. Leicester stay in 4th on 18 points, which is 3 behind Spurs and Liverpool. Chelsea in 3rd place on 19 points. Now, we're talking hurling. We'll get to Pat Nevin after 9 o'clock, but we're talking hurling for the time being. Waterford Limerick will meet in this year's All-Ireland final, 13th of December 2020, a repeat of the Munster final, of course. Drama on Saturday night as Waterford came back from 9 points down. Things a bit more routine yesterday. So 2-23, 2-27 was the scoreline on Saturday. And yesterday, Limerick beat Galway 27 points to 24. We have Shane McGrath with us. Evening, Shane.
Well, Joe, how's things?
Yeah, very well. The good news, by the way, is Joe Canning's recovering at home and was discharged from hospital. That was one of the worries people obviously had after the game yesterday. I was just saying in the news round, Malachy Clerkin pointed this out in the paper today. If I don't mention it now, I'll run out of time, and I do want to mention it because it's insane. So Joe Canning obviously scored the 4 sideline cuts in the game yesterday, and you know, if you think this guy is better than most at sideline cuts, the numbers bear that out in a way you probably underestimated. So his tally to date for sideline cut championship points is 27. Now, the closest player to him in the history of the game is Mick Maroney, who played for Clare in the 70s, and his tally is 8 to Canning's 27. And of the hurlers still playing, Noel McGrath, Austin Gleeson, they are closest to Canning with 5 each. Canning has scored 7 in the past month. So 27 sideline cuts, Joe Canning. That's an extraordinary gap to have over the hundreds of exponents of the skill in the history of the game.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal when you give those numbers. Like, it's, I don't feel too bad about the 2 I scored now.
It probably puts you top 10.
Yeah, there you go, look.
Why is he so good?
Why is he so good?
His technique, or what is it about him?
His technique, you know, I remember being on here before with James, he talked about it, and it's kind of like that genuflect mode. But I just think everybody has a good technique. All top intercounty lads have a good technique. I think Joe Canning has an ability, and he's a phenomenal golfer as well. I'm sure you know that, Joe. Like, he just has the ability to hit the ball in the right spot. Because, for like, you take, for example, right, anybody who's taken a sideline in Croke Park, it's not many lads you see score sidelines at Croke Park, first of all. You'll see more lads score sidelines in Semple Stadium because the grass is just, it's a thicker grass. It allows you to get under the ball more. Whereas Croke Park is kind of more, has that almost kind of artificial feel to it. Now, the pitch looks unbelievable, but that artificial feel to it. So for him to consistently go up there, consistently score sidelines up there, and Croke Park plays bigger as well. So if you're taking a sideline at Croke Park 50 yards out, it feels like you're another 10 yards out because of the stadium surrounding. So it's a phenomenal figure. It probably won't ever be equal. Will it really, Joe? Like, I mean, if you're talking about the guys there, the Noel McGraths of this world, Austin Gleesons, like they're unreal at it, and they're country mile behind him. So, and look, as you said, delighted to hear he's okay. I was up in Croke Park yesterday, seen the ambulance coming in, the blue lights flashing. But look, it's all precautionary. But I found it funny. I don't know if you've noticed it now, the comparison, the 2 number 10s, the way they took the sidelines. Like, you had Joe, who, if they got a sideline within 40, 50 yards, the Galway lads, right, put it down, lads, we're going for a pint here. Whereas the Limerick lads, right, said, yeah, put it down, and Hegarty will take it. But Hegarty just drops the ball on the ground, and he's looking to hit it 10, 15 yards. So I found it very fascinating, the comparison to the 2 number 10s taking the sidelines. Joe looking to nail a point, regardless of where it's from, realistically inside the 65. And kudos to Fintan Burke as well for his sideline. And Limerick then looking to always 10, 15 yards, maybe play the percentages, ball to hand, and maybe goes back to the guy who can strike it down the field. And I suppose that goes back maybe to the way they're coached, the way Kinnock is in training. But look, we can't take away from that ability of Joe to put them sidelines over the bar. No, and that's a very interesting point you make about the Croke Park turf versus Semple Stadium. I hadn't realised that. So that's the equivalent of a you know, an amateur golfer not liking a really tight lie. You know, they want a bit of grass to fluff it up for them. So to get under that ball the way Canning is more impressive all the same. So he is still, even on the tighter turf, he's still getting under the ball, is he? He's not like a golfer coming down on it and using the loft. No, he's not. And look, I suppose one of the great things about his family is, well, that they make hurleys, right? So if you can make your own hurley and you're good at it, and his brothers seem to be very good at it, they sell enough of them anyway. You know, if you can make your own hurley and you can You can size it, you can weight it, you can have the heel of the hurley to just how you want it.
Yeah.
Like we've all had hurleys, like every player's had hurleys or a pair of boots that they love and they feel they're going to play better with. And Joe Canning, every time he goes out, I'm sure he has a hurley that he loves. Now, it might be a new hurley every second or third game, but he has that advantage of having that hurley laboratory, if you want to say, like where he can just make this hurley that just fits him perfectly. It might feel alien to someone else if they held it, but for him and for his grip, look, the other side of it is, I mean, his wrists, and he's just natural ability as well, Joe, just to get under the ball, but just to meet it perfectly every time. Like if we've all taken, as I said, you know, I scored 2 myself, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent, but I probably hit the next one, did it? It fluffed along the ground, but he's consistently meeting that ball on the money, and just kind of that trajectory of it. Then I think it's something you can practice a lot, but until you go up to Crow Park and try and take one, it's a different kettle of fish. I tell you, I wasn't too keen running back to take one in Crow Park. I was like, oh, please let this go off the ground, let alone go over the bar. Like, so, yeah, that'll tell you how good he is at him.
Yeah, well, look, you're only 25 behind him, so ain't so bad.
Yeah. I might come back.
Kilkenny Waterford then, look, that's the game. That's the one that gripped us all the most over the weekend for obvious reasons. Game of 2 halves doesn't even quite do it justice. Like, the thing is, in so many ways in that first half, Waterford were clearly revved up for the game. Like, in certain metrics, i.e. turnovers, they were actually on a par with Kilkenny in that first half. Like, it wasn't, they were flat-footed. If anything, they were too revved up. They were jittery. Their shot selection lacked composure. They were making some handling errors. They were just so fired up almost they didn't have any composure. And Kilkenny, by comparison, their heart rate just seemed to settle straight away into this game. So explain to me what happened.
For me, it's this. Like, for me, you have a lot of those Waterford guys who would have been their first time playing a senior inter-county game in Crow Park, because they're a relatively young squad. I think they have 8 guys involved since 2017. That All-Ireland final. So that's probably one thing. The comparison to that is you've Kilkenny playing week in, week out, championship, All-Ireland semi-finals, to this squad at minor, under 21, senior level. They have played Crow Park numerous times. So the stadium didn't faze them or anything. And you had a lot of guys there who would have played a lot of All-Ireland semi-finals. For me, the Waterford thing was, as you said, Joe, you're dead right. They looked very nervous, looked very tetchy. I think that was most evident in Jake Dillon getting taken off after 15 minutes. People would say, Liam Cahill is ruthless and this, that, and the other. And look, he is a ruthless manager. He's made no bones about that. He was involved with the Tip minor team, and he was saying about the parents that they all think they're geese or swans, and maybe they're not as good as they think. So he holds no punches, he's his own man. But took off Jake Dillon, but Jake Dillon just looked so nervous and tetchy, and he kind of maybe epitomised what Waterford were in the first quarter. And I just think while they weren't getting the scores, they only got 3 points. They had 4 wides in that first quarter. So they were getting on ball. They, just because of the nervousness and the tetchiness of the All-Ireland semi-final and what was at stake for them and everything, I just feel it took them that first quarter to settle. And they really did, to be fair to them. And then, they powered on then in the second quarter. From minute 30 to 36, they got that belief and they outscored Kilkenny 3 points to 1. You'd say, right, that might mean much difference. But if they didn't do that, Kilkenny would have went in 2-11 to 6 points up. And then it's a very hard thing to climb. But for me, what impressed them most, Joe, hurling-wise, there's a serious bunch at Waterford. Their mental strength is what impressed me most. Because, and talking to even John Milan up there yesterday, Waterford teams maybe down through the years, if you're not 8-9 points down against Kilkenny and you're after playing your 3rd week in a row, suddenly everything seems harder. Like, you feel tireder. The 3 weeks of the game, you start feeling it in the legs, you start feeling it everywhere. But they just stuck to the system. They trust the system. They trust each other, and they have a great panel now. And they just they stuck to that system. And I said they believed in each other, and they believed that they were going to get a victory. And they never, ever gave in. And for me, and even talking to people about it, it probably was the greatest second half performance from a Waterford team in Championship hurling, maybe ever. And it's definitely up there with some of the greats All-Ireland semi-final second half performances, because I'm sure you're well aware, Joe, I know you're a good man for stats like myself. Like that 3rd quarter, this Championship quarter they often talk about maybe in NFL and stuff. Waterford took 15 shots and scored 12. Kilkenny took 8 shots and scored 4, but the score was 111 to 4 points in the third quarter. And that just showed me a team that was just buzzing with confidence there coming out after half time.
Yeah. So of their 13 wides was the stat I had. 9 were in the first half, and that was not a stat I was surprised to see. It felt that way. You know, there were 8 down at half time that had 9 wides. A lot of bad wides, either poor strikes or just wrong time to shoot, lack of composure. Brendan Cummins had a piece today in the Irish Independent. He made a good point about this Waterford side. He says when they get the ball in the opposition half, because he's there, and I know you were there yesterday, so you probably had the same experience. The shout from the Cork bench is go, 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 go. It's not take your point, it's not shoot, it's go. And they definitely want to run at teams and go for goal. And like it was a full-on assault for 35 minutes. So there's no doubt Waterford won this game. To what extent did Kilkenny lose it though? Because look, it doesn't matter how well Waterford played. 8-point lead, half-time, Kilkenny. Yeah. Something went badly wrong in that second half not to see it out.
Yeah, and what was it like? For me, Waterford's work rate, like it was phenomenal. Waterford did to Kilkenny what Kilkenny had been doing to teams for so long. And they from turnovers from Waterford, from turning over Kilkenny, they got 14 points from wherever they turned them over on the field. But for me, the one thing was where Kilkenny have dominated most teams they've played down through the years, in the Brian Cody era anyway, is aerial ability, Joe. And you'll know this as well as anyone. Kilkenny are so strong when in primary possession, snapping the ball out of the air, and then the score looks easier. But it's actually someone who has actually stood up to catch that ball, be it a half forward line or someone in their full forward line. And from their puckouts, Waterford won 11 of Kilkenny's puckouts. So Waterford did to Kilkenny what Kilkenny had been doing so long to people. They bet them in the air. Like Jack Fagan's 2 catches. We normally associate that with Kilkenny lads. With, you know, you go down through the years with the Owen Larkins, with the Henrys, you know what I mean, with the Richie Powers. These guys, that's what they do to teams. They win balls like that, catch them, and it leads to goals. Jack Fagan did it, and Waterford did it to Kilkenny on Saturday night, and they got 2 goals out of it. And like I just thought they were awesome in the air. But I just think that they have a panel now, and Cahill has built a panel in regards that, like Joe, I suppose we've all been involved in teams like maybe where the manager has looked over his shoulder and said, I can't bring any of these lads on today, like, you know, because he just doesn't trust them. Yeah. Whereas now Liam Cahill turns around and he sees 5, 6, 7 guys that he actually trusts. And, you know, even take from the Munster final, Conor Gleeson didn't come on the Munster final, Irla Daly didn't come on the Munster final. If there's 2 more guys now Liam Cahill's going to look at for the next stage, go, I really trust these guys. But to try and answer your question, Joe, I think Waterford in the air dominated against Kilkenny. Okay. And then when it got to ground, because of their work rate, because of their fitness and everything, they were winning those breaks. And they were winning that breaking ball. But, you know, to win 11 of Kilkenny's puckouts, I thought was a big factor in them getting the victory, Joe. Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how they handle the nerves of the final, because they're going to be just as revved up again, and they can't afford, you would think. Yeah. I mean, Jesus, I know. Write them off at your yeah, go on. Do you know what? Do you know what will go in their favour, Joe? That it's Limerick, familiar foe. No, not Limerick even. COVID. And I know this sounds crazy. There was COVID at the weekend, though. There was COVID at the weekend, and it affected them. Yeah, but you think about it, right? No hotels to worry about. No, not to worry about partners getting bags or dresses to hotels, right? Yeah, okay. No tickets, no build-up. They'll have their press night, I'm sure. You'll know better than I would, but it won't be the same. No. There'll be no massive furore about this, maybe like there was before for Waterford things. And Liam Cahill will be able to manage that much better than maybe previous Waterford managers, because let's face, like 2008, the thing got blown out of the water. Yeah, no, I take your point. I still think they'll have to sit down and say what happened in the first 15 minutes there, because the effort was there and the composure wasn't. You know. Yeah. I think it was a nervousness. I think it was a nervousness getting to Croke Park with this group for the first time, and I just think maybe that's gone out of the system now, to be honest. Yeah. Well, we'll soon see. So Limerick 27, Galway 24. This was a cagier affair, to say the least. Yeah. Pádraig Mannion in its sweeper for Galway. Galway started well, 5 points up, and once Tipperary got to grips with things, it just never looked like this was going to catch fire. They've kind of trotted their way into an All-Ireland final, Limerick, without anyone really having their hand on their throat at any stage. Yeah. Look, I wish it was Tipperary, Joe. As you said, it's actually Limerick. But I tell you, like, I feel like, you know, Limerick won this game. And have we seen Limerick at top performance from Limerick yet this year? No, like. And you're saying, okay, how does that make sense, right? They scored 3-23, I think, against Tip, Blow and Cork. They played fine. They won the Munster final, 25 points, 21. Played fine. Yesterday, I think the tagline was, semi-finals are for winning, and they won it. And they scored 21 points from play, and they had 9 different scorers. But again, you'd say, yeah, they played fine. Are they saving their biggest performance for the All-Ireland final? And if they are, what's it going to be like? Because, what's the stick John Kiley's going to beat him in for the week, right? This is what it is, right? He's going to say, right, we won the match, and it was physical battle. It was a physical battle. You see the hits that were going in, and the marks were left and everything, but 16 whites in the game. So there's a stick John Kiley's going to beat him with. What's another one? They're in discipline. 12 frees conceded, and Galway scored 10 frees. But even they're in discipline against Waterford in the Munster final. Stephen Bennett scored 10 points for frees in the Munster final. So, while they're winning all these matches, Kiley still is looking for deep performance from him.
And is the stick to use not that? Is the stick not very simply? You've only won one of these things, and you messed up last year. You're the best team in the country. You've been the best team in the country for 3 years. It's are you going to screw this up and only end up with one for the last 3 years? I mean, I would have thought team talk done,
Oh, that's it. Oh, look, there'll be no real motivation needed for either team, obviously. But I mean, the Limerick group, will be very, very disappointed if their players only won All-Ireland.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was involved in the group as well, Joe, with similar things. A lot of us came away with one All-Ireland. But for me, we played the greatest hurling team of all time.
Yeah.
That's who we lost to. But I mean, this Limerick group, I think people of Limerick have to realise as well what a group they have. 10 years ago, Limerick weren't even feeling their first team in Munster Championship match because of what was going on in the county and, disrepute and everything. And you fast forward in, they've won 5 trophies in the last 27 months. Back-to-back Munsters, back-to-back leagues. They have their All-Ireland, but they have no doubt about it. They're going to look at cementing themselves as maybe, and probably, in my opinion, I wasn't around for the teams of the 70s in Limerick. We see how close the teams of the 90s went, but they didn't win it. So if Limerick can win this, are they the greatest hurling team in Limerick ever? They probably are.
Yeah.
Because of the success they've had. And you think about it, these lads are coming up with colleges, All-Ireland medals, minor medals, under 21 medals. And they've won the lot, Joel.
And is there something about them, they've dished out hammerings, so, there may be, this may be a stupid question, but, there's some race horses that just do enough to win every race. And it feels like Limerick are kind of, I feel like if Galway, who were probably disappointing tactically yesterday in that they never went for it. The Galway scored 3 goals against Tip. I thought, great, they'll have a rattle off Limerick here, and it was much cagier. And, you got to choose your poison. But you just wonder if Galway had gone to 5th gear, I do feel like Limerick would have gone to 5th gear with them.
Yeah, that's it for me too. I think whatever you want, and I think it's the response they've had in matches. You go back to the match below Cork against Tip when Jake Morris got the goal. Limerick responded with 1-5. When Tip got the second goal that day, Limerick responded with 3 points. In the Munster final, Waterford won the third quarter, I think 7-4. Connacht got them in last quarter. Limerick win that last quarter 7-3. And you're just looking at them here, saying in the first half, it's 7 points to 4 down at one stage. They regroup. And I think for a coach like Connacht or Beavens, I think the water breaks are magic when you're just it's not happening for you. You come in, you reassess, and you just say 1 or 2 things, and the whole thing changes. And next thing, Limerick go out in just before half time. They go from 4 points to 15 points at half time. Why? Because they just regrouped and they just reassessed, and Connacht has a chat with them and they get the whole thing going again. But I think tactically, you're right, Joe. Galway, the puckouts killed them. They lost 13 of their puckouts, but they lost 6 of those puckouts inside their own half. Yeah. Limerick didn't lose any puckout inside their own half. They lost puckouts, but it was all past the 65 at the other end. And Éanna Murphy is such a learning curve for him. My heart went to him yesterday, looking at him down in the goal. He made a brilliant double save in, I think, minute 42. Made a brilliant save off David Reid. He went onto the post. But he's just that kind of goalkeeper. I think he wants to nearly take on everything. Whereas he'll learn now from that, I'm sure. He'll say, look, maybe this one isn't on. But it just, the puckouts they lost, as I said, the 6 they lost inside their own half. Limerick turned them over. And I think they got 5 scores out of that. Even do you remember Hegarty near the end?
Yeah.
The free Tom Morrissey got. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
just killers. They're psychological and they're mentally draining killers when you lose the puck out inside your own half.
Yeah. Well, geez, Hegarty and Morrissey, 9 points between them from play. We'll talk about them when we're previewing this final very soon. So Shane McGrath, thanks so much for that great stuff. Cheers, Shane.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Good to chat to you.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Sea swimming, a test of courage, a step out of your comfort zone. Through the huddled masses and polite hellos, the awaiting water, testing the resolve of the uninitiated. The first contact, the sudden shriek, the flurry of expletives, the realization that